What is up, Pod Nation? Welcome to the Podio Slate podcast. My name is Nate, and I'm here with my co-hosts, Tony and Anthony. How you guys doing tonight?
Yo.
Feeling good, feeling great, feeling good. How are you? It's Anthony.
I'm doing good, too. And
are you Anthony? No, you're not. That's a lie.
Anthony,
you said you were Nate
Twan.
Last time.
Yeah, who's
Am I Tony? Who am I?
Sometimes you are Tony, but I don't. I cry false on that.
I don't. I don't go by Tony. So, which actually makes this easy-ish.
It does, yeah, right.
Easy-ish for us. I mean, it's like the Spider-Man meme, like who's who? Anthony,
yeah, exactly.
Tony.
Exactly. We have a guest on that's never met us. They're like, you're Tony. I don't know what's going on.
You said Twan. Wait, what's going on?
Who the fuck is Twan?
That kind of reminds me that this is the first time in a long time that it's just us three. We had kind of a home run after home run after home run with some guests on here. That was a lot of fun.
It really was, man. We had, going back to episode 70, Peanut of the legendary 311. And I mean, Peanut himself is legendary bassist.
Yeah.
That was wild. And, go back and listen to that one. It's a great episode. They are getting real close now to kicking off their tour, which we're all going to see in Portland, Maine here in a few weeks. So that's exciting. Check out episode 70. And then episode 71, we had author Jameson Ketchum. His book came out about a couple weeks ago now, actually. And go check that out, Name Dropping. And that was, I really enjoyed that conversation because he fit in with us like it was somebody we'd known for years and we'd never talked to him before. So that one felt really comfortable and fun. And then last week, the Wheel of New Metal returns with our friends from The Itch. We went on their pod for their season finale a few weeks back to talk about Jimmy Eat World's Bleed American. So we reciprocated and had them come on with us and dusted off Nate's favorite wheel, the Wheel of New Metal.
Yes.
Yeah, we had the back-to-back three-peat, 3-episode run, if you want to call it that. And I'm going to echo what I said last time we did that. It's a lot of work. It's so much fun to share podcasts with other hosts and things like that. It's still a lot of work. You got to kind of get a prep for their episode. You got to prep for our episode. With all the interviews, there's a ton of prep that goes into the questions and whatnot. But that's what we do. We love it. Are we going to go 4 in a row?
No, we don't have anybody tonight. It's just us.
Greg, can you bail us out over here?
Well, if you're listening to this, I have probably hung out with Greg at this point, but we're a little time travel situation. I'm hoping to see Greg over my vacation next week. So, yeah, there'll be pictures on our Twitter that you can go back and find, I'm hoping.
That'd be great. Yeah, kind of off the cuff with Greg. Behind the scenes, the nerd on the street. Tone's going to be nerd on the streets.
The Bourbon Brothers, man. Check out the Bourbon Brothers. They're awesome.
Yeah, you can talk to him about his time with 311 now that we had Peanut on. Different stories from different perspectives.
I know, it's great.
We did. Round 2. Yeah. Round 1 was Club Hexam.
Yep.
And that was what? 50, 60, what episode was that?
40-something. 46, 47, something like that.
The touring one? Oh, no, it was the one before that.
Oh, the touring one was 64. Yeah, it was the one before that.
Oh, shit. Too many times. I can't keep up.
Yeah, he'll be back for number 4 soon, I'm sure.
So that got me thinking. We have a wish list of guests that we want to get to. Some that are kind of pipe dreams, others that are, maybe a little more achievable. But if you as the listener have anyone in mind that you think would be a good fit for us to interview, throw it to us. Maybe it's someone that we just haven't thought of, or maybe it's someone we don't even know and we're intrigued by it. So throw it at us. We're down for that. We're down for the cause.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, that's why those last 3 interviews we just had were kind of shows our versatility, right? Doing a podcast with another fellow podcast, and then Peanut of a heavyweight band that we've all been huge fans of from back in the day, and then the author too, Jameson. So we're down to talk to anyone, and everyone has someone that knows someone. So tap into that.
Absolutely. If you listen to us and you know somebody and you think they'd be a good fit, shoot us an email, podiouslaypodcast@gmail.com. Also, I'm patting us on the back right now. We went from Peanut, who's in, the mishmash group of 311 that plays, all kinds of different styles, positivity being number 1, into Jameson talking about, Dashboard and that scene, into the Wheel of New Metal with The Itch. Like, name me a more versatile music podcast than the fucking Podio Slate podcast. There isn't one. If you know of one more versatile than us, email me that too.
Oh, totally. And I think what we have kind of in the pipeline will showcase that as well. And I threw that out there not to say, hey, we're desperate for guests. We do have folks in the pipeline that we're just trying to pin down. And I think if you liked any of that mishmash that Tony just mentioned, you're going to dig this stuff. But again, we're always open, so throw it at us.
Yeah, that versatility is real. Like Joe Rogan, so 2019, Audio Slave is 2021 going forward.
Yeah, he's buried on Spotify. We're everywhere. Spotify
Yeah, we're
included.
everywhere. We don't get censored.
I mean, who knows?
Who knows? Yeah.
We're not saying anything worth getting censored either. We're just having fun with different people in the music industry, which I mean, we've been fans of since we were 7, as I said in episode 71.
I mean, there is speculation that we've been censored. We can't prove it.
Speculation.
Because the metrics are buried. So we'll just have to conspiracy theorize that we're censored.
Yeah. Anytime we shit on Spotify, weird shit happens.
Daniel Eek, stop messing with us.
Yeah.
So we have a little mid-year kind of review we wanted to give you guys. The music that we've been digging that came out in 2021 so far. We know it's August and you're getting this now in August, but because of our little 3 episode escapade that we had to push this out a little bit. But we've been thinking about it for a while now, and we wanted to, I don't know, maybe give a handful of records that we've been spinning a ton, stuff that we're excited about maybe coming up, and kind of go from there and maybe surprise each other with stuff that we didn't know the other liked, because we often do that here. So you guys got anything to add to it?
Yeah, I mean, for mine, it won't be in any order. You know, I think we're going to save that for the end of year recap. We'll probably do one of those again. In these, they may hang on to, top 5, for example. They may slip off, but I think at halftime, these are in the mix. And I'll say this, and coming up with this, I had a running list for the last few months. I haven't checked out a ton. There hasn't been a ton that's come out. So I didn't have to dig because I had already identified these ones, but I did do a little research and I was like, no, those don't crack these few. So just keep that in mind as we're chatting about this stuff.
Yeah, good call. For me, like there was a lot of artists that we talked about kind of throughout this year up until this point, and I still didn't fully check out certain areas of different albums or whatever. I kind of gave something a certain time of day, but not a full-on concentration. So this is like a good exercise to really like dig deep into this album, listen to it full front to back, kind of like a vinyl session. Just kind of nice.
Yeah, I did listen to a ton leading up to this, and I kind of landed with the few that I had from a few weeks back when we kind of planted the seed for this episode.
Well, I'm gonna put you on the spot then. Give us one.
Oh man, where do I start? What do I do? I'm gonna start with a band from France, and the band is Landmarks. They put out Lost in the Waves. They're a metalcore band from France. I think I dropped one of the songs in our group chat for you guys to check out.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And so I'll say this. This album was my introduction to the band. I'd heard of them, but I'd never checked them out. And then recently I saw them on a couple festival lineups. So I was like, all right, I remember the name. And the spelling's a little funky. It's Landmvrks. So if you're familiar with the band Paris, who puts the V instead of the A, same type of thing. It does make them stand out.
Kind of drives me nuts. I'm not going to lie to you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like, do I pronounce it Landmarks or do they intend
Landmarks.
Yeah, Marvers or Perverse or
Pervis.
Yeah.
Traverches. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. That's three bands. But I saw this record keep popping up on Instagram because the vinyl presentation is stunning. So I was like, all right, I've heard enough about this. I'm going to check them out. So if you were to ask me what this album sounds like, and I have not checked the back catalog, but this album, it's if Knocked Loose, A Day to Remember, Vanna, and Linkin Park just had a love child, which it sounds like it shouldn't work. I mean, some of those bands are closer than the others. Linkin Park's obviously the outlier, but there's some big-ass Linkin Park type choruses on this album that it works. So have you guys, I have a little more, but have you guys checked this out?
Not yet, just that song, and it was a while back that you sent it, so I'd have to listen to it again to refresh my memory, but I do remember you sending it, and I remember being upset about the spelling. I mean, I'm not upset, I'm mostly kidding, but it does kind of make me, that aesthetic kind of bothers me, and I don't know why. Same thing with Paris, same thing with Traverches. It just makes me want to say the name wrong, which kind of drives me nuts. Like, I'm glad we don't have a V in Audio Slave upside down, Yeah. It wouldn't make sense.
Yeah, we're older now, so like a backwards R in Corn is like for us, we're kind of, we're used to it. But if you're older at the time, you'd be like, the fuck, man, the backwards R is annoying as fuck.
We survived new metal. Just listened last week.
And we embrace it. I have to check this out, Tuan, but I do like the fact that they're from France, because anything that's coming out of Europe lately there's some really good stuff coming out of Europe that has been kind of off the cuff and maybe not so much mainstream. So you kind of got to dig for it. This looks like it's one of those kind of like hidden gems.
Well, that's kind of like Loathe last year, right? For you, Tuan? They're Great Britain, I believe. UK.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, actually very similar, and kind of doing kind of the similar thing. That's like they're doing something that's popping over in the US, but putting their spin on it. Like there's a song on this album that the singer is kind of rapping, and not in a nu metal way, in a actually rapping, and it sounds pretty good. And in French, the rest is in English.
Interesting.
Which is super interesting. But I'm gonna throw out two kind of hot takes on this album, and then we can move on. Track 3 in this album, it's called Silent. Right now, it's like contender for Song of the Year so far. I think it combines the best of every band I just mentioned, and like blatant Chester from Linkin Park vibes. And
wow,
I just don't think many bands can pull that off. Like this album shouldn't work, and it won't be on a lot of top lists. But for me, drink, whatever you want to do, it just works, and it combines a lot of my interests. The second hot take is, if Linkin Park if they ever reunited, they should tap Florent is the singer's name. They should tap him, and I think I'm going to speculate. I think Chester would be okay with it, just given his role with Stone Temple Pilots. But I'm telling you, listen to this album through that lens, and I think you'll appreciate it.
Nice nerd homework. I love that stuff.
Yeah, that's cool. I had one question though. How long has the band been around?
I want to say early 2010s. I don't know for sure.
Okay,
I'd say 7 or 8 years maybe.
Nice.
Although they look young, so
this is the first one that kind of popped off for you.
Yeah, like I said, just heard the name. Just I guess more seen the name, because the V does stand out. I'll give them that. But yeah, first one that was on my radar.
Nice.
Yeah, the reason I ask like how long they've been around is it sounds like just the way you described it with the Linkin Park thing. Like there's a new like wave of bands and sounds that are coming out that are like kind of taking the torch, from bands that have been kind of like holding the crown for such a long time that someone has to pass it on at some point. So this looks like it might be one of those bands to have another 30-year trajectory.
I think they're like 6 years old.
Yep.
Is what I.
Yeah. Okay. Nice.
Yeah. What I think. So they had released in 2016. It might have been just an EP.
Yep. What label are they on? Anything over here? Or are they?
Yeah, it is. I recognize the label. Well, maybe not. A Rising Empire, I think was the name of it. But I thought it was something else I recognized, but I could be wrong. Oh, Sharp Tone. That's who I remember. I think it was a previous album.
Good one to start us off with, because it gives me homework, which I always like, and I mean I'll definitely peep that here in the next couple of days. Do you want me to go, Nate, or you got one?
Yeah, I got one ready to go here. This is what I was alluding to earlier with some music that we had kind of, we riffed on a little bit, but we didn't really go too deep on. This guy passed away. We did a tribute for him, DMX. His album Exodus. I never really actually gave the album much time of day after his death, because it did drop after he passed away, and it's pretty good. I gotta say, it's interesting to hear him come back with this album, and the songs that are on it are like almost like a throwback to the 90s all day, down to the special guests. He's got like Nas on there, Jay-Z, and and that song in particular that's with them is called Bath Salts, and it's a friggin' banger. It's a tight song. I think also interesting is that he actually did write this between 2020 and 2021. So this is a very relevant album in terms of like he was writing this during the whole lockdown, clearly recording during the lockdown. So it's almost like a snapshot of that era right before he passed away. Also very sad because we don't know the whole story about his passing, the struggles that led up to that. So this is kind of like almost like I think we talked about it on here before, the Johnny Cash album. The last one he put out with Rick Rubin before he passed away. It was almost like, this is like, a goodbye album, even though it's just very much like a throwback album to his early stuff. So I was checking this out and it was like, all right, he went out, he went out the way he was supposed to go out, I guess. That's what I'm trying to say.
The song with Bono is we've talked about on here when it was announced that it was going to happen.
Yep.
And I was surprised at it working. I remember listening to it and sending it to you guys and be like, this is actually low-key a banger. really kind of surprised that this works. I didn't think it was going to, but it did. That was probably my favorite song on that record when I listened to it. It's been a couple of weeks now since I spun it, but yeah, bummer. I mean, obviously that anything DMX, the way he passed, I think, heart attack or complications from doing some drugs, which wasn't ideal and probably not on purpose. I hope for his sake, because if he was tortured like that's no fun either. But dude was prolific, put out some great records over the course of 20 plus years. And I'll never forget listening to "It Is Dark and Hell Is Hot" in 8th grade and being like, whoa, who is this? What is this? And, to still be listening to DMX music, right up until his passing in 2021 is pretty awesome.
Yeah, that actually brings back memories for me, because that in that time period, and I'll respond to Exodus here in a second, but in that time period, that was like on the heels of kind of what I call like the glam rap of the P. Diddy era, where he came in, and you can fact check me on that time sequence, but he came in and just kind of flipped the game on its head. It was
totally
more raw than
so raw.
A lot of stuff we'd seen in that era. But question for you guys on this album, do we think this was like in the can, ready to go, or did the studio kind of put things together after he passed away?
I think a lot of it was done.
A lot of it was done. Not
completely done. They probably had to like either sequence or like master or any of that stuff. But I think because we got the announcement about that Bono track, early this year, right? It was like March, I want to say, maybe even before that. So I think there was a decent amount of it done. And we've talked about the nature of hip hop and how turning over hip hop tracks is quicker and easier than, say, a band with 4 people and 4 different instruments or 3 instruments and a vocal. Hip hop is beat and rapper, and if you're looking for a feature, they're sending you stuff over the internet and tossing it into the beat. Like, it's not as difficult, I don't think. Not to say that it isn't difficult, but it's not like getting everybody in the room. Yeah,
that's a good question, because after listening to it today, it doesn't really flow like a full album should. Even in hip hop, it's just kind of, I don't know, it doesn't flow in like a nice kind of smooth manner. It's kind of up and down, up and down, up and down, which DMX is kind of, like we were just talking about, very aggressive and has a different style. But part of me thinks that it might have been patched together based on your question, Twan, and after thinking about it in retrospect. But it does say it was recorded 2020 to 2021. He passed away in April. The album dropped on May 28th. But ultimately, I think that he was ready for a big comeback. I mean, between these special guests on his album, and he was in prison for a while for tax evasion and dealing with some stuff. So I feel like this was probably, just thinking out loud here, that maybe this was supposed to be like a big comeback for him to actually like do full on arenas and like really come back. Cause he was, playing small clubs and kind of falling down in terms of like his sales and just like shows and so forth. So hard to say.
Yeah. It's too bad about him. Cause he was making more public appearances leading up to this, and he looked healthier than he had. Because there were a few interviews I remember seeing where he obviously wasn't all there. And I know he came, I think we talked about this, he came through Maine, I think in 2019, and he had to have been in some reasonable headspace to perform, and I heard he was good. So, I don't know how that all went down, but it's too bad. And unfortunately, I think he still had a little bit left in the tank. I mean, he was, pushing 50 or pretty close.
Yep.
But I haven't heard this album. I haven't heard it.
Well, the Bono song is a banger. And what was the other, Bath Salts, Nate?
Bath Salts is sick, yeah.
Yep. And it does have some pretty awesome features.
Yeah, he passed away at 50 years old.
50. It's got the locks on it.
Yeah. Felt like Bad Boy Street Team. Couldn't work the locks.
Yeah. Speaking of Kanye, no,
we're not going to go there because we're taping this before that it may have dropped and it probably didn't drop, and who the fuck knows with Kanye. We're both I think we're all excited for it if it did drop, but maybe we have thoughts on it now, but we're time traveling again, so we got to stop.
Yeah, we'll circle those wagons later.
Well, you'll hear from us about Kanye later in the year if Kanye did drop a record this year, so who knows?
And if you know someone that knows Kanye, we'll get him on the pod.
Yeah, we'll talk to him. I've got one. It's an EP. It's 8 minutes long. I know Twan's going to know it.
Turnstile.
Oh, yeah. Oh, man. Talk about 8 minutes and being fucking awesome from start to finish, and you being like, play again. Yep, just going to play it again. I listened to it like no less than 7 times in a row when I first listened to it. It's, what's the name of it? Turnstile Love Connection, I think.
Yep. Turnstile Love Connection.
It is awesome. And I had never been into this band beforehand. I went back and listened to some older stuff and liked that too. But this is like exactly what I want out of a band like them. And I'm stoked. And they're putting an album out later this year, right? It's coming out in a couple of weeks.
I think in August. Yep.
Yeah. So a few weeks from this taping. And man, it's one of those things like, it's 8 minutes. I wish it was 48 minutes. Like, give me more and more and more of this. And I just couldn't get enough of it. And I will probably spin it 4 more times when we're done tonight, just because it's easy to listen to. Man, I'm shocked that I liked it. I'm not going to lie to you, because it just kept popping up everywhere. I was like, all right, I got to check it out. It's one of those things. If I hear it one place, I'm like, all right, radar's up a little bit. Then I hear it from somewhere completely different. I got to check it out. It's one of those deals. It's time to throw it on. It's time to give yourself, the chance. And this did not disappoint. And I'm stoked for the album later this year. If it's anything more like this, which I'm hoping it is, that's going to be a banger and probably in my top 5.
It's a great way to promote too, to do that and then drop the full length after. It's just kind of get people warmed up on a cliffhanger. I remember when you sent it. Is this the one that has the quote "Reading Rainbow" vibes?
I think so.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Right. That was a perfect time. You sent it at the perfect time. I had it in headphones and everything, and like fully absorbed. And like, I think I just had some coffee or something. It was like, what did I say? Like music reviews on coffee. It was like the first thing I listened to in the morning, because you sent that, and I was like, oh, this is probably the best way to review music, is like first thing in the morning coffee. There's no, distractions quite yet. And I'll check this out. So I am a man of my word. I'm starting to check out stuff that you send me.
You are. We've shamed you into it long enough.
I've turned in a new page.
So this actually is on my list as a kind of an alternate, because I have 2 EPs, but I love it. It's great. I think it shows, like, on Time and Space, you can kind of see where they were going, even more from, was it Nonstop Feeling, the one before that, which had kind of, some songs have like 311 vibes, which I think I'd have to think of the EP before that, which you would not have seen coming from them, given even earlier stuff, but it just works. And with Time and Space, they made the leap to Roadrunner, and it's kind of a callback to those mid-90s Roadrunner bands like Shelter, and kind of bands that were rooted in the hardcore scene but made the leap beyond that. And you can see an edge to this, but there's also some polish. In fact, I honestly can't remember the name. I'm not sure if it's there's a song on this EP, and there's only a few of them, that it reminds me of the intro to Limp Bizkit's Counterfeit. And you can at me if you hear this and you're questioning it. The intro, it's like, it's kind of a little bass with some funkiness going on.
Yep.
It reminds me of Limp Bizkit's Counterfeit. But great album. I'm looking forward to it. If you follow us on Instagram, we did a post where we had listeners guess the album, and it was like a quick cycle of albums. The only one people didn't get is Turnstile's Time and Space. No one got it.
Yep.
So I just spoiled it for everyone.
Well, that was a little while ago now, so.
Yeah. Great pick. I love this album, and my wife has seen them. I dragged them to I dragged her to see The Story So Far, and they opened, and they were great. Oh, wow. They were fantastic.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah. This could be a whole segment. I dragged my at the time girlfriend, now wife, to Thrice and Animals as Leaders in Boston on Thrice's farewell tour, and she didn't know what the fuck to think. So,
will they thank us later? Perhaps.
Maybe not. I mean, they're still with us, right? So we're doing something right there.
Yeah. Do it for the nerds.
Exactly.
Please believe me. This is good music. It's good for everyone.
Either come with or I'm going anyway. So
yeah, right. I'm going to go by myself.
Yeah. It is a tough sell sometimes. It's got to be like, there's certain bands. In fact, maybe I'll go. Is it my turn? I can't remember.
You were Twan, but you can go if you got one.
Yeah, if you got one.
Oh,
go
shit.
For it. Yeah, go for it.
So speaking of which, there's some bands that you may drag your wife or girlfriend to. This one, I'm going to go ahead and say straight up that it would not work out. Like, this would be a denial or bring wife to show and she takes a cab home type thing. And the band is, I think Twan, you'll agree, is how do you say, Gojira?
Gojira.
I don't even know why I can't say it right now. I listened again today for the first time in a long time, and kind of took me back to when I first played the album. And just the first track, Born for One Thing? Like, it just captivates you. Yep. Like, brings you in. And it's just like, I was driving today, I was like, man, talk about like the perfect show opener song, like just made for a stadium. And after listening to the album a few times, I was like, man, this band may be bigger than Deftones by the time they go on tour. Like they're ready to just like explode. I feel like what I was alluding to earlier, like they're ready to take the torch to the next level. So not a band to bring the wife to, I don't think, depends on their taste in music. But I know right away from my personal circumstance that wouldn't be the case. But this album slays.
So it's fitting because this was my next pick.
Okay, nice.
Yeah.
Damn.
And I had actually, when I introduced Landmarks, I introduced them as a band from France, metalcore band, and I believe that's where Gojira is from. So I think we're on a French metal kick here. But yeah, this album, I've liked Gojira for a long time. I saw them for the first time in 2004 at the Palladium for Hardcore Metal Fest. Always liked them, but this is one that perked me up. I was like, all right, there's something special about this. And I think I was thinking about it today. A newer band or a young band could not have written this album. There's just like this, I don't know, intentionalness, like that just comes from experience where, I don't know, it's hard to describe. Like, I feel like you almost need to listen to their back catalog, but it just shines through on this album. And there's a little filler there. There's like some weird instrumental stuff that may or may not fit, but I think if you're a fan of death metal, there's something here for you. I also hear some Korn riffs in this album. So if you're an Ozfest guy, there's definitely something here for you. And they tour with Slipknot a lot, so that I definitely believe that. But this is up there, and the artwork's awesome.
Artwork is awesome. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, it just shines through for me. I see no world where this isn't in my top 5 at the end of the year.
Nice. I have not listened to this yet, and it's not because I don't want to. It just has not. Whenever I'm going to grab something, I've grabbed some of the stuff that I'm going to give you here in a little bit more, and been just really kind of stuck on 2 of these albums, because they just have resonated with me so hard. But that's something, for me to remedy over the next couple of weeks, and I'm sure I will, because I always do. I'm not quite on Nate's level, but I feel like Nate right now. I'm not going to lie.
It's okay.
It's okay, right? It happens. I mean, stuff. Man, it's sometimes you got to be really led to the water to drink it, and this is one of those situations for me. And I definitely need to give this record, with you guys both liking it as much as you do, I need to give this record a spin, or a few spins.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's something to be said about time and place. I mean, like this album, while driving, it was like I didn't have to worry about bothering anyone, so I was blasting the shit out of the album. And I was like, this is the way this music is supposed to be listened to. So it was almost like unique to that experience. I could do it at home, but it wouldn't be. I'd be worried the whole time, like, who am I bothering? I got to fully embrace it in my car. And to your point, Twan, I think it also had some comparisons to a band like Tool, just because they're so intricate in their musicianship. Felt like, okay, this is a musician's band. And we've been talking about that a lot lately. And I'm like, all right, I can see why they were about to go on tour with Deftones, because Stefan's a huge metal guy, obviously. So I think he even plays a 7-string now. So yeah, I think it's a time and place. It's hard to just randomly throw in a death metal album,
You say go on tour, about to go on tour now. That's not till 2022 now, but
nah, true.
They're still touring because they're coming to Portland, right?
Yep, they're coming to Portland. Well, you nailed it with a time and place thing, Nate. And I was gonna say, like, it all depends on when, like, where you are when someone recommends it. Like, if someone texts you and you're in a meeting and you don't see it till later, it gets caught in the waterfall of recommendations and texts. But if you're sitting on your butt on a Saturday and someone says check it out, then you might do it right then and there.
It's a good point. I never think of that, because you're right. I'm sure many music fans, and if you're listening to us, you're probably similar to us in this respect. You've got group texts with friends, and stuff is just coming in throughout the day, and sometimes you just can't get to it until it's the right time.
Yeah. And last comment about this album is, I think they're like 25 years in as a band, and I think I've heard most of their catalog. For this to be their best album is pretty impressive, and I think it speaks to them being just dialed in. Like this will be Loudwire, all those sites. They'll have this in the top 5 at the end of the year. That's
wild. They've been around that long, and to have this be one of their stronger records. They've obviously got strong records if they've been around that long. It doesn't happen. You don't stick around for 25 years if you suck.
Yeah, their Spotify listenership is like, it's so high, I actually don't even believe it.
What is it?
Multiple million. I know that. Wow. Yeah.
Wow.
Wow.
1.5 million. So maybe not multiple million.
All right. So when Julian Baker's record came out in February, I listened to it a decent amount and really liked it. I liked the direction she was headed. It was a little more full than her first two albums, which are, the first album is really just her and a guitar, and her voice is so great it doesn't matter. You don't need much more than that. And the second one's got a little bit more to it, but mostly still her and a guitar. And this one is a little more like ethereal. There's some band behind it, some band elements behind it, and it's called Little Oblivions. It's really good. I listened to it again this week, and she's just great. I don't put a record on and listen to something, multiple times throughout the year. I mean, this came out in February. We're talking in August now. If it's not really, really good, sometimes it's one and done. If it's something that you might like and come back to at some point, but no, this is something that I'm like, yep, I remember why I liked this in February. I remember why I liked this in March, April, May, June, July, August. So here we are, 6 months later, and it's still probably going to be in my top 5 at the end of the year because she's just such a talented songwriter, and it puts you in a mood. Not always a great one. And that her music isn't always the happiest music. I mean, I'm looking at my list here and I'm like, oh man, none of this is super happy. But sometimes that's cathartic. Sometimes that lets some of those feelings that you're uncomfortable with pass. And this album does that for me. And that's probably why it's, still getting spun.
I checked this album out when it came out. It was in rotation for several weeks, and I actually haven't listened to it in a few months. And I remember texting you guys when I listened to it. I remember exactly what I said. I said, Julian Baker just put the music world on notice because it's a fantastic album. I don't know why I never really have come back to it in the last few months. I think it just, I don't know, maybe just not listening to as much music in general. But I am going to go back to a previous episode we had. It had to have been last year where we said, who's going to save 2021?
It was early this year, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, it was early this year. And Tony, you said Julian Baker. So
yep.
Now that the album's come out, do you think she has saved 2021? Or who will save us from 2020? That's what it was.
That's
what
right.
it was. Yep.
She's up there. Yeah, she's up there. And this is really good. And anybody who hasn't checked her out, go check all 3 albums out. They're all phenomenal in their own way. And they're all different too, which is, she does just enough of what really makes her special on each one. But there's a growth from record to record, which is hard to do for some people. And sometimes you just get the same record for 6 records and you're like, all right, I like it, but I heard this already. I think there's some differences with her. And yeah, I think if you're paying attention, she's up there for sure as far as saving 2020, saving us from 2020.
Yep. And last comment is this was on my alternate fringe list. Nice. So we're all in the same sphere, which is a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, even I had it written down, to be honest, because you kept mentioning it, Tone. So I finally checked it out. Come clean, I checked it out today. So I put her on here just because I was so impressed. She reminded me of like a female Elliott Smith in terms of her writing ability and just overall delivery. And I think in terms of saving us from 2020, what you mentioned earlier definitely makes sense. Like she's painting the picture and essentially getting us through those emotions through her lyrics, right, for us. So that is, if anything, checks that box in terms of saving us from 2020. But I really liked it. I really liked what this album had to offer. And first listen, it was like I haven't checked out her old stuff. It was just this album, but I was fully captivated. I really like the song Zip Tie. That kind of took me in. And I'll check her out when she's rolling through here this fall in San Diego.
I'm jealous, man.
Nice. What's your standout track, Tone?
It's a great question. I'm frantically looking for the track list.
I remember really digging, was it Faith Healer?
Yep,
it was
Faith Healer is very good.
Early
on.
in the album.
Yep. Heat Wave's really good. Zip Tie's great, Nate. Good call. I mean, the opening track's great. Hardline. But yeah, Faith Healer's probably my favorite one on the record. Nate, if you like this, you'll like her other stuff too. But it will feel different for you. And I'm actually kind of jealous of that. When you find somebody, like I remember listening to Sprained Ankle on the recommendation of our episode 20, was he Jason Tate episode 23? I think he was way back on episode 23. We had Jason Tate and he raved about Julian Baker. So I was like, all right. And I listened and loved it. And then when the new one, Turn Off the Lights, came out, I loved that. And to hear it from the progression of from start to today, whereas you're now going to go backwards, I'm kind of, I want to like live in your shoes and go the opposite direction and see what that's like.
I'm happy you brought that up because it is like an exciting time to like get into a band like when they're killing it and then go back to the stuff that they were also very good at. That just is like an added bonus. Like, nice, now I get everything. And seeing them on tour, you know they're going to play that back catalog and the new stuff. So you're like, it's like that sweet spot when you find someone. I feel like that actually probably, for me at least, because I'm not a legacy fan like you, Twan, for Gojira, to just see them in their peak, basically, you know?
Yeah, and she has, I mean, this is going to come up with another artist that we'll probably talk about here, but like, I think universal appeal. I think I think, wasn't she on like 6131 Records? Like, that was predominantly a hardcore record label. I remember from back in the day, like Guns Up, I think was with them.
Yeah.
And it just, I think that's her kind of lineage. And so she's got that scene backing her. She's definitely in with the Pitchfork crowd, but also the Chorus FM crowd. Like, how many bands can do that? I don't know. Not many.
Yeah, it's hard. That's hard.
Not many. Yeah. So kudos to her. This album, similar with Gojira, as far as the Pitchforks of the world and all those
that'll be top 5 for a lot of people.
Yeah, journalist sites and things like that will be way the hell up there.
Nate, you got another one?
Yes, I got one. This is a band I haven't listened to in quite some time, and I wanted to bring it up because I think COVID gave us some time to circle back to some other bands or bands that we kind of came up on and maybe lost track of. You know, we talk about sometimes on here like, yeah, they've dropped albums. I didn't really check it out. They are one of my favorite bands from back in the day. That applies to this one. It's Modest Mouse. They just dropped an album, and I've been listening to it lately. And it's kind of an interesting hybrid between like their older roots and some kind of interesting, weird, I want to say like Flaming Lips direction where it's just super out there. But I appreciate it because it's the band at their core it's never been like a mainstream band. Modest Mouse was always supposed to be like this weird indie, almost like Beck in the early days, like one man band, all sorts of weird sounds, unnecessary fillers. So this is what this album is, I think. It's called Golden Casket, and it's just a trip. The Flaming Lips comparison is really just because it seems like it's a concept album. There's definitely some weird storylines and Brock's, smoker voice taking you on into these different directions. And it just kind of brought me back to like, oh, nice. It's good to revisit these bands because they still are relevant. And Modest Mouse is, they're from Portland, right? So Portlandia, very, very strange, but also very, detailed and just unique in its own right. So I've been checking this out, and got to say, it's probably one of their best albums in a while, but I got to say, I haven't listened to everything that's come out, but this one it seems like a standout album, like almost like a comeback album.
Oh, wow. I have not listened to this yet, and I struggle with Modest Mouse sometimes. Sometimes I love it, and sometimes I'm just like, nah, man, not for me. And hear you talk about this way, this might be a little more up my alley with them, but you're right. They are still kicking around, still, relevant, putting out music and being, on the forefront. This will be an album that a lot of people will have high to, I'm sure, at the end of the year because it's Modest Mouse. And the name alone is going to turn some heads. Like, I think they played Portland a handful of years back around maybe their last record release. And I really wanted to go to that, and I kind of wish I had because I'd never seen them. And looking back on it now, it's like it's another show regret. If I had seen them, I might be even more into them because that's happened to me so many times with bands. And maybe I'd have already checked this out, type of deal. So worth nerd homework is always good homework. So I'm excited to pop this on too. Glad they're still kicking around doing it. It's been a long time. 25 years at least, right?
Yeah,
has to be.
Last album was 2015, so it's definitely been a hiatus for sure.
So I haven't listened to this album. I've seen the cover, and it's a trippy cover. Like I can see the Flaming Lips kind of thought process with it, and it really lends itself to. This was an album that had to have been recorded during the pandemic. You know what I mean? Like they just holed up and cranked it out, and this is the product. I don't know how it's done as far as reviews and scores and all that stuff. But I do know that Modest Mouse is always in that appreciated by the Rolling Stones of the world. I think they get into the Stereo Gum crowd. Pitchfork, I think, historically has rated them pretty well. I think I'm in kind of your camp, Tone, but I probably listened to them less than you. I know they started early on as that college radio darling band, and then they had a breakthrough that was kind of by accident, and it just kind of latched on. Yeah, because when they came through, I think they played the Civic Center the last time.
Yeah.
Which seems
Strangers. It was Strangers to, what was it called?
Well, I know they played
Strangers
the Civic
to
Center
Ourselves.
because they put they cut it in half just due to the crowd. It was less than they thought it would be, but it still drew pretty well. It would have exceeded the State Theater cap, but even that surprises me in 2021.
They played the State for Strangers to Ourselves, which
Nice.
was 2015, I think.
Okay, yeah, this would have been after that. This would have been maybe 2017, something like that. But it just surprises me the demand they still pull, and the crowds they still pull. But I love the opening track. The name of it, it's called "Fuck Your Acid Trip."
Yeah.
That's very Flaming Lips.
And number 9 is "Never Fuck a Spider on the Fly."
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, I'd love to know what kind of headspace they were in during the pandemic. Just holed up in the studio, just cranking out tunes.
Yep.
Yep.
This might be the start of that the floodgates of bigger names dropping some stuff here.
Yeah. Anyone else that we know about?
That hasn't dropped stuff yet, or is going to?
Well, you said it's opened the floodgates of new stuff. Is there anything that we know that's coming?
Oh yeah, there's plenty. I mean, we just heard about Thrice. We alluded to Kanye maybe having already dropped something or is going to drop something. Who knows? I'm sure there's a bunch of stuff in the fall. Who else? There's another one. There's
Coldplay.
yeah, Coldplay and their Emoji album.
Emoji album. Yep.
That's very Coldplay.
I mean, there's different ways. There's different ways to stay relevant. Coldplay always executes on what's the easiest way to market. So that's like a very target bundle mix CD release party, emoji style.
I got a question for you. Is Coldplay? Did Coldplay morph from, kind of indie darling to industry plant? Because I think they did.
Yes.
Well, they had that Something Like This song, which is like
Oh my God.
made for a commercial or a wedding.
Yeah.
Or both.
Yeah. Actually, it reminds me of going back to this Modest Mouse thing. It's like they're on Epic Records, but they're still considered indie rock. Those are totally polar opposite things in every sense of the matter, because Epic Records is Sony. So, everyone says you sell out when you sign to a major. Modest Mouse, I think, probably should have always stayed indie, because I don't think they really are a mainstream band, but they probably signed just for, and we talked about this on here before, I think they probably signed just for the distribution of their music, because they just aren't, they'll never be a mainstream band. And like you said, that actually highlights your point. When I'm surprised they still pull what they do touring wise, but it's mainly based probably on those hit radio singles.
Yeah. And I mean, as you got to remember, people age as musicians age. So a lot of people don't change their music taste. So if you got into Coldplay in the early 2000s when Yellow dropped, when it was on Buzzword, the MTV2, and everyone thought they were U2 reps, then yeah, you probably still like them today. And you probably don't like who's the big rock bands out there now? They don't exist.
Imagine Dragons, kind of.
Yeah.
They're not really a big rock band, but they're the big commercial, another similar to Coldplay, another car commercial band.
Yeah. Yeah, there's Greta Van Zeppelin, stuff like that. Yeah.
yeah, there's them too. Yeah. Well, there's other good rock bands. They're in the indie space. Like the War on Drugs is another band that they're putting an album out, I think, later this year that I'm excited about because I've liked everything they put out. But they're a little more indie. But they've got a pretty good following now too, because they just keep putting out bangers. So another interesting, sidebar as far as that stuff goes.
Yeah, this whole like COVID trapped in the studio thing, like it's real. Like these albums, either the albums that bands had already started pre-pandemic that they were able to finish during COVID, or even the bands that just, studioed the whole thing and wrote it in the studio, like those are going to hit. It might be in early 2022, but we'll see it in, maybe Q4 for a lot of these guys. Yeah.
Yep. You got another one, Tuan?
I do. I got a few. Let's end with Fiddlehead, Between the Richness.
Yeah.
Do you get that one too?
I do. I didn't write it down here, but it's definitely been top of mind. I've listened to it a ton.
Yeah, just a great record. And I think I'm going to make a similar comment that I made for Julian Baker. I was trying to describe their sound, and I can think of so many different things. Like, if you were a fan of Pat and I forget the drummer's name, but if you're a fan of Pat Flynn from Have Heart and the whole Bridge 9 hardcore thing, and you followed him to this band, you'd still like them. If you're a fan of Discord Records in that DC raw punk thing, there's appeal here. If you're a fan of the Midwest emo thing with like Sunny Day and Get Up Kids and whatever, there's something here for you. If you like the Smiths and the Cure, there's something here for you. Pure Noise Records, like there's something here for you. And I think there's not going to be a record, maybe besides Julian Baker, that's appreciated by Pitchfork, Absolute Punk, Pure Noise, the Bridge 9 board. Like I think it's so universal and it's genuine, it's honest, the lyrics are heartfelt, the imagery matches the music. If you've ever seen them or seen any of Pat Flynn's bands, he's just so genuine. He's such a smart dude. There's nothing not to like, and I think this is the culmination of kind of all that, and I just love it. It's a great album. 25 minutes of pure bliss, really, with a little edge. It's got a little edge.
Oh, that's why I like it. It's not super edge.
Yeah,
it's
totally
like
approachable.
It gives you some entry points, and it also will kind of come at you in some spots, and you're like, okay, all right, I'm in for that. You were into Have Heart, right? That was Pat's band before, you said?
Yep.
So you're coming at it from that angle, which is also fun, and I'm sure. Do you like when band members or bands like that kind of morph into this, or are you just here for all of it? It's not a big deal.
It can go terribly wrong, but it can go, if it works, it goes great. And I think honestly, it's like it gets back to like who the person is, and I don't think they lost anything that they were from the previous band, and I don't think he's trying to be anything he's not. Like the end track, Heart to Heart, like you get some Have Heart vibes from Pat at the end of that song from the Have Heart days. So I'm here for it all, I think, is the punchline.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Fair. That's fair. Well, I'm super into this record too, and it was one of those ones that I didn't even know that I would be, and then it came out and I listened to it and I was like, holy shit. Like, okay. Sign me up. Like, I want to go see them live, although they're playing a small number of shows, and I think Boston the closest, and that sold out in like a heartbeat. So
yeah, tiny venue.
not gonna hit that one, but yeah, it's I see where a lot of people like this and can come from a lot of different angles, and you're right, it's similar to the Julian Baker talk we just had. It's a lot of places are going to find something about this record that they like, and it's very approachable at 25 minutes, and it's very approachable in sound, but it also will come at you in spots, which I like that shit. So
yeah, there's something you said there that I think resonates, which is if it's approachable and there's some muscle memory in terms of like, the previous stuff like Have a Heart, I think it's like kind of a win-win formula, because kind of going back to the Peanut 311 interview, it's like as long as it has some positive connotation, I think everyone can gravitate towards that to an extent, given what we've gone through the last 15 months or so. So there's some holding power just based on that principle. If you can be a band that delivers a message that is relatable, but also a sound that's somewhat familiar based on previous bands or previous sounds, like, I can't help but think like the Machine Gun Kelly album. I listened to that the other day too, and it's just like it's pop punk circa 2003, right?
Right.
In 2021. So it's like I instantly like this. Like it'd be hard. I'd be forcing myself not to like it. So I think that's a good point. It's just like, oh yeah, there's some layers in here that I remember from different eras of my music appreciation coming up.
I think we're at a good age for that too, honestly.
Totally.
We've been around a ton of different music, and we've seen the landscape change a couple of times where, when you're 19, you've only seen maybe one major fad, and, at 35 or 6 or 7, you've seen 3 or 4, and you're like, I like pieces of this, I like pieces of that. And when a band puts a lot of those pieces in one place for you, that makes it that much more special.
Well, and also to piggyback on that, it's like we don't care what anyone thinks what we listen to, or which maybe might not have been the case
part of it too.
at
Yeah,
16.
totally.
You know, it's like if you asked me when I was 16, honestly, when I was 16, if I liked the Smiths, I'd be like, no way, like what? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And as soon as I turned like 20, 21, it was like, wow, joke's on me, man. This is awesome. And then you just kind of expand on that. And we've talked about that same, Taylor Swift, for example. It's like, if it's good, it's
Absolutely.
good. And if you don't like it, that's fine. Just more for me.
Exactly. And if you do like it, cool. And if I like it and you don't, also cool.
Right.
Like It's
Yeah.
to each their own, as they say.
Yep.
Yep. Yeah, it's the best time ever to be alive. If music was like the style of jeans, like my closet would have like Jenkos for the new metal. It would have like bell bottoms for like the Zeppelin, you know? It would have like skinny jeans for like, I don't know, whatever, you know?
The analogy king is back, baby.
Yeah.
That's great.
Carpenter pants for your Luke Combs affection.
Yeah, cargo shorts.
Yep. Ripped jeans for the grunge era. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it.
LEI for Mandy Moore.
That's wow. Good pull.
Yeah, I'm getting rid of the food analogy. It's all about the jeans now.
Yep, jeans from now on. Yep. Where do the silver tabs fit in? That's what I want to know.
Silver tabs is like Ricky
Nickelback.
Nickelback.
Wow, I had silver tabs. Fuck you.
Silver tabs is probably
What about Structure? What about Abercrombie and Fitch?
Structure.
That's like the chain smokers.
Yeah. Abercrombie and Fitch is like the Chainsmokers. Yeah. All right, that was a tangent we haven't had in a while. That was a good one.
Perfect. Throwback.
The jeans analogy. That might, if we didn't name episodes pre-2, that would be a good one. All right, I got another one for you, and
Nice.
you guys, this will be a broken record to you two because you've heard me extol this band's virtues millions of times, but the new Manchester Orchestra is. If this isn't my number one at the end of the year, I don't know what came out, and I'm really happy that something else came out that beat it because this is going to be my number one at the end of the year. I'll be shocked if it's not. It is. I love this band. I grew up with this band. When Everything to Nothing dropped, is when I kind of got into them. Obviously, with I've Got Friends was the radio hit, as they say. I'm not sure how big it was, but they've spun it here in Portland, and that's how I got into them. And they've grown up as I've grown up, and the music has kind of facilitated that and sounded like that on the way through. And this is no different. In the last two records, I think Black Mile to the Surface and this Million Masks of God are both just untouchable. There's no breaks. There's a great song everywhere you look. There's a hook. There's a chorus that's great. It's just fucking phenomenal. And I love what this band has turned into. The last 6 or 7 months, they've been part of 2 or 3 of my favorite music moments of the year, and that's counting this podcast. So that's kind of cool because we've had some pretty awesome guests on this podcast that I never would have thought I'd talk to or we'd talk to. So, I'm a very, very large fan of this band, and this album does not disappoint. And I am so stoked to see them in Portland at the State Theater in October.
So, comment for me. I alluded to Silent by Landmarks as a contender for Song of the Year. I didn't mention this, but Heart to Heart by Fiddlehead, contender for Song of the Year. But also in the mix is Angel of Death, track 2 from this album.
Yep.
And Tone, you can probably understand this from the podcast, but when Tone's all in on something, he's all in on something. And he kept pushing this album. And I kind of fell in the Nate camp of like, I'll get to it. I've never really got them. Not that I didn't like what I heard. I just didn't spend enough time with it. Check the album out. In headphones is key. And you kept preaching that.
Right.
Yeah.
Get a good pair of headphones. Listen to this. Angel of Death is, man, that song. They could play a set of that, and I could just listen to them play a whole set of that song.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It's up there. I forgot about this album, honestly, putting this list together.
That was me with Fiddlehead, and it wasn't on purpose because I thoroughly enjoyed that Fiddlehead record. So,
Have you heard this one, Nate?
Yeah, I checked it out too. In fact, when you got it on wax, when you got it on vinyl, Tone, I really gave it a deep spin. Just because when you buy anything on vinyl, it has to pass like a certain test. It's a kind of a big investment, and it's got to be kind of at least close to a full length listen through for it to be worth purchasing. So I was like, all right. So that kind of like made me a little bit more curious, and yeah, instantly listen to it in headphones. And I was a fan. I don't even want to say casual. I was a pretty big fan, but this album kind of brought me back. They've been out of the scene for, what was the last album before this? It's been a few years, right?
Black Mile, 3 or 4 years ago. And that record's untouchable. I love that record too. So if you like this one, go back and listen to that one. Not just you, Nate, anybody.
Yeah. They do a great job of making very atmospheric sounds as a full band, and his voice is amazing. It definitely captivates you, similar to what I was saying with Gojira. Yeah, man, I love this album. I think it's amazing that bands are putting out albums right now that are front to back. So we are seeing that next kind of scene, that new decade of like, this is not even their debut album, maybe like a return to form or something like that. I'm not really sure how to word it for this band in particular, but just quality music is definitely coming out. I think that's a good theme that we're kind of alluding to here on this episode. 2021 is really just an interesting year in terms of, I don't want to say years previous were not as strong in terms of music output, but I think 2021 is definitely highlighting a strong point in essentially a new wave of music, both from legacy artists and new artists alike. That, whether it was because of COVID or not is hard to really pinpoint, but this album is so solid that I'm like, all right, people are definitely putting their heads down and putting out their best work because there's no time to waste at this point. Like, let's put out a solid front to back record, and maybe vinyl has something to do with that. Like, if we're going to press this, it has to be a listen through. I'm not sure, but
two things come to mind listening to you talk just now. One, I love that when I bought it on vinyl, you're like, all right, I got to check this out. That's great to me.
Mm-hmm.
And two, I do like your vinyl comparison. I do think that, like, I wish more bands thought, if we're going to press this, we want people to sit and listen to the whole thing, because there's a bunch that don't. Obviously, I mean, they're gonna press stuff, but it's like, I wish I could skip tracks 2, 6, and 12 because they're just garbage. But we don't buy records that have that, right? I'm just gonna listen to that digitally and go about my day. But if it's a band that you really like or a record that you want to listen to the entire thing, you're buying it on vinyl and you're excited about putting it on. And I mean, you've seen our Sunday spins. If you follow us here, you listen to us here. We love doing that stuff. So I'm in love with this record. I'm in love with this band.
This is and again, I don't know the full catalog, but what I remember hearing, this is the best vocal performance for the lead singer, I think, just from what I've heard. Like, there were elements of this album that reminded me of Kings of Leon. And I'm not saying the singer of Kings has the best voice in the world, but I don't remember hearing that from earlier stuff.
I agree with that. This is another band that kind of pulls in a couple of things from different areas that make them sound the way they do. I mean, they do that ethereal thing really well. They do that atmospheric thing really well. But they do have a couple of other spots there, too, that they can kind of draw from. That. And Kings of Leon's a good point. They do kind of sound, they do have some spots where they sound like that.
More so with this album. Yeah. More so with this album, for sure.
Yep.
I was just thinking they're from Atlanta, Georgia, too. So maybe that vocal delivery has some comparisons to Michael Stipe. I know R.E.M. is from Atlanta. Maybe not. Maybe he's influenced. Maybe not. But I do know that maybe that has something to do with that general, geographic and that kind of singing ability.
I think there's something to be said for, like, the South and religion being, whether or not you're into it, you grow up with it because it's so ingrained into the culture in that part of the country. I get that. And that's, you're going to wear that on your sleeve one way or another, good or bad.
Great album. And I don't think I can go to the show in Portland just because of the timing of it, but the new songs would be fantastic in that house at the State Theater.
I'm excited. And you know what's funny? I've told this story in the pod. I don't remember if it was with Rob when we had Rob on 17 or another time, but the only other time I saw them was August of, like, I don't know, 08 maybe. They came through for Me and Everything and Nothing. And the record, our buddy Brian was talking through the entire set, and it was a point where Andy was just singing a song with Andy, the lead singer, was singing a song with his acoustic guitar, nothing else on the stage, and it was quiet, and everybody was kind of into the moment. And our buddy Gleason wouldn't shut up, and the rep was with us, and he took his sandal off and chucked it at him. Well, I'm going to the show in October, and so is Gleason, so I'm really hoping somebody throws a sandal at him again.
13 years later. The other shoe gets thrown. The
other shoe is going to drop.
Yeah, the other
October 2021.
Oh man.
I'm going to pull a Nate. We met them after that show too. Remember that, Nate? We went upstairs. Yeah, that was the only time one of two times I've been upstairs at the State Theater was to meet Manchester Orchestra after, and they were super humble and super sweet, and to meet Weird Al.
Nice.
Also super humble and also super sweet.
What a mix. Only on this podcast.
Only on this podcast,
remember that,
baby. Yeah.
Gojira, Weird Al, Manork,
Julian Baker,
Coldplay,
Modest Mouse, Coldplay. Yeah, we got it all. DMX.
I know. So I think we'll probably round it there, right? I mean, we have a few. I know I have a few others, but I think I'll kind of save those to see if they make it to the end.
Yeah.
Because I think like the ones that we talked about, or the ones that I mentioned, are way up there for me. There's a couple that are, again, it all depends on your mood. I mean, I could spend more time with a couple of these others that I didn't chat about, and they could make the leap. So who knows? Definitely. I mean, there's still, 6 months left of the year?
Yeah. I mean, we'll find something about the stuff that's come out between January and the end of June or early July that we like more than we did today. And we'll also, I'm sure, stuff will come out this fall. I mean, we've got releases from all over the map that we're all excited about. So those will make their way in too, and then we'll have to slot them accordingly at the end of the year.
Yeah. Mood appropriate is a good one, because I was going from Gojira to DMX to Julian Baker to Modest Mouse. I think even my brain was thinking, like, what the fuck is going on right now? There's too many sounds.
Yeah. Been there, man.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks for listening, guys. Thanks for, if you don't follow us, but for those of you that do follow us at Audio Slave on Twitter and Instagram, thanks for doing that. If you don't follow us there, go ahead and rate, like, subscribe, share with a friend, share with a coworker, share with somebody else that likes music as much as you do, because that helps grow the Audio Slave family. And we need more pod heads out there.
Absolutely. And like Twan said earlier, anyone that you want to hear us interview, any topics you want to hear us talk about, we're all in. We're always kind of hashing out different things, but listenership wise, we're very curious on, who you want to see on the podcast. We'd probably be in, to be honest, considering our scope here today. So hit us up.
Yeah. Drop us a line, everyone. Thanks for checking us out. And also send us your front runners for album of the year. See if they align with us, or you get something new to the table. See ya.
Cheers.
Peace, pod heads.